Good afternoon, everybody. I have Vinny Gala with us this afternoon, and he is an RMU alum, and he is the Senior Manager of UV Services and Calgon Carbon, and he'll be taking his time to talk to you about what employers are looking for and what you can do to make your own brand competitive. So if you'd welcome him.
Thank you all for having me. The topic of today's discussion is obviously, is your college experience reflecting your brand, what you want your brand to be?
He's going to turn you on, if he can.
We need to exchange. Is that better? So again, is your college experience reflecting your brand? What do you want your brand to be? And what are you doing today to make sure that you're achieving your goal? Before we get started, I wanted to start out with a couple of questions today. How many of you guys have a resume right now? And how many of you would you think that that is the most important aspect or the most important attribute to getting a job offer? Okay. That's the traditional way of thinking, and it's good to see not many people are buying into that. So today we're going to talk about what is important beyond the resume. So, topics for today. What are employers really looking for in entry-level candidates? It's not just education and experience anymore. There's many things beyond that, and we'll talk about them. Then, is your brand competitive? Is it what the employers are looking for? Is it what your job seekers have? Are you being competitive with your job seekers? Personal differentiations, our most important section today. What can we do with our time in college to make sure that our brand's the best it can be? Then we'll talk about selling your brand. How are you going to advance what you've taken the time to build to the employers that you're going to be meeting with? Then we'll wrap it up. If you have any questions, we'll go through those at the end. So introductions. I know it's a little bit corny and cliche, but I'd like to kind of get an idea of who's in the room today. How many people are seniors in here? Great. Juniors? Sophomores? Freshmen? All right. And then majors. Is everyone pretty much just business in here? General business? Any non-business people? Since you're the only one, what may I ask? Good for you. You're going to be my favorite person in here today. About me a little bit here. I started my my educational journey in 2002 at Fairmont State University. Studied drafting design, mechanical engineering. Graduated in 2006. In 2011, I went back and got my project management professional certificate. And as Jennifer mentioned, I'm an RMU alum. Got my MBA from here in 2013. So about my experience, I graduated on a Friday and I was fortunate enough to start work as a project engineer at Aquatech on a Monday. That's the job site there on the top right at which I worked. It's in the Sultanate of Oman in the Middle East. Spent quite a bit of time there. After I finished at Aquatech, I moved on to Calgon Carbon, where I'm presently at. I've held a couple different positions there. Most recently, I'm the senior manager of the UV Services group. That group's in charge of all of the pre-shipment product testing, all of the global field service needs, and aftermarket parts and service sales. So I guess my next question, maybe the most important question, is why do presenters take the time to go through this? Anyone have an idea? Absolutely. That's the only reason. I know you don't care. I bored myself talking about that. Honestly, I mean, after this slide, we'll never use this again. Isn't that kind of what your resume does? It builds your credibility so you can get a job interview. Beyond that, what's the point? If the resume were so important, we wouldn't need to do the interview process. People would just select you right then and there. So we'll talk about what's important beyond the resume, what's going to get you the job, and what you can do to position yourself to get it. So that brings us to the next section. What are employers really looking for in entry-level employees? Anyone want to throw some ideas out? Experience, yes, that's a good one. It's another good one. Education, obviously. Soft skills, kind of what you're talking about there. I just wanted to talk about them one at a time here, just the top ones. The first, education. The first point here is obviously for a job posting, you want to have a degree in the related field, or at least relevant coursework. The second thing, and something you might not think about, is university pedigree, or where you went to school. It seems like a lot of employers, if they're given the choice between two equal candidates, if they have an alliance or an allegiance to a certain university, they're going to select that person. Bob from accounting might be an awesome accountant. He might be from Penn State. Maybe the interviewer's from Penn State. Who are they going to pick? GPA. It's another. It's probably the biggest opportunity to differentiate yourselves. For the most part, that's only for the first job you get in internships. After that, no one cares. I haven't found anyone that cares, really. So the next point, experience. This is the source of many a entry-level job hunt-related meme on the internet. You can see one on the left there. How do you get experience when the jobs require you to have experience? It's kind of an interesting issue. The first opportunity for experience, and probably the most common, is having an internship, right? Internships are great. They tell your prospective employer that somebody was willing to trust you enough to bring you on for at least a short amount of time. They also give you the opportunity to be exposed to a corporate setting, so people know they're not going to have to train you on how to attend meetings and how to behave in meetings, things like that. And then you may gain some valuable skills that you can use in future positions. Other experience that you can use, relevant experience, volunteer service related to your field. Maybe you're the church treasurer or something and you're trying to get an accounting job. That's a good place to start. Other relevant experience, special projects, life experiences, anything related to your degree or the job that you're applying for. And then irrelevant experience, volunteer service unrelated to your field, interest and passions. I put in irrelevant experience up here just because it seems irrelevant on the surface, but really any experience you have can be made into relevant experience for the job you're looking for. And we'll talk more about this in some upcoming slides. Here's the most important thing I think employers are looking for, and this checks out with a lot of the studies that are being done, soft skills. Chart on the left here is from a study that was undertaken maybe 2 or 3 years ago. What are the top five skills employers are looking for? Look what's at the top of the list. Communication. Degrees, number 2, that's a hard skill. Everything else on there is a soft skill. One statistic I found, I want to read it here so we make sure we get it right. On the soft skill front, only 16% of college students think that soft skills are important for career development. That's compared to 93% of employers that say soft skills weigh more heavily than academic credentials. We need to be spending our time in the right places. You guys are going to get a degree. You're here. Things that my education never focused on were soft skills. They always said that your degree's enough. We need to work on building these, especially us as millennials. So what's another thing people are looking for? A professional. Someone who's ready to function like an adult. You would be surprised how many adults in the workplace still can't do that. That's a problem. The second thing, has the potential to grow into other roles within the company. Hiring managers don't have the time to keep bringing people on board just to see them leave 1 or 2 years later. They want to keep advancing them into new roles just from a cost standpoint. We'll talk more about this in a little bit. And then is self-sufficient. Hiring managers are generally in the trenches anymore. People are trying to do more with less. So they don't have time to have people coming into their office every hour or every 2 hours asking them what to do next or how do I handle this problem. Employees need to think on their own. And then finally, brings with him or her a fresh perspective. That one, in our groups, in our departments, it's very easy to become mundane and monotonous. When somebody else new comes on, they can breathe new life into the group. And that's really important if you get the right person in there. And then finally, something different and something unique. Something that makes you stand out in a positive way. And if you don't have experience, try to find some other focal points. Maybe your education, your GPA, or just win with soft skills. Charm the interviewer, just have a great interview. This stack of resumes is not uncommon for some of these bigger employers with just a general job posting out there. They might get 100 different resumes for a given job. They're only going to look at it for about 30 seconds max. So you have to find something that's going to make you stand out. So that brings us to the next section. Is your brand competitive, and how do you know? So where do you start? Well, I think the first thing you should do is think of yourself as a company that's selling a product. How do you determine how competitive it is in the market? In other words, why should people buy the product you're trying to sell? One of the tools that you see used in marketing is the competitive analysis, where you go through and find out what makes your product unique. What are the strengths and weaknesses of your product, and how do you play on the strengths to leverage them into competitive advantage for your product? And if you're one of these people lagging behind, what can you do to improve it? So what are some things you should consider? First, what's your industry or target market? That's a common competitive advantage question. But as it relates to the job hunt, what do you want to do? What job title do you want to have? Where do you want to work? The second point, who are your customers? What skills does your employer want? What do they need? What's the market expecting? The next one, who are your competitors, your fellow job seekers? How are they better than you? How are you better than them? You need to know this so you can make your weaknesses into strengths, so you can work on them. And then, as we said, how's your product different? It's not as easy as education anymore. Back in the day, it used to be able to say, I have a college degree, hire me, and people would. Not anymore. Experiences and other skills matter. So I think this is the most important section of the topic today. We've already talked about determining what strengths and what weaknesses you have in your personal brand. Now we're going to talk about how to differentiate yourselves from other job seekers, from other brands out there. So first off, I'm assuming everyone knows what differentiation is, being a majority of business majors in here. The chief goal of differentiation is to create something that your customers perceive as being unique, at least, even if it is. Pretty good graphic here from The Simpsons. You can see 3 vats. One's called Duff, one's called Duff Light, one's called Duff Dry. They're all being fed by a common header. So it's the same product. It's just being differentiated by a different name. Sometimes that's enough. So in terms of differentiating your product, your personal brand, what are some things that we can focus on? What are some aspects that we can look at? Education's one. What else can we look at? Experience? Things you do outside the classroom? Yeah. Soft skills? Here's some potential opportunities for differentiation. The first we talked about, education. Really not going to play a role in your first entry-level position, perhaps. Maybe when you get into your second or third jobs, people are going to start looking for advanced degrees. But for entry-level positions, it may not matter. Pedigree, we talked about earlier, that one could play a role at some point in your life. Experience, relevant and irrelevant. That's internships, life experiences. Selling price, what's your cost to the company, your salary? For the most part, in some of these larger organizations especially, that's not going to matter a whole lot. When you establish job classifications, they'll give you a salary range you can pay somebody. There's not much you can do to change that as a hiring manager. Obviously, for an entry-level person, you're going to try to get him on the lower end of the range just for a probationary period, perhaps. Then you can bump him up later. And then the other thing, soft skills. We'll talk a lot about this one today. What can we do different? Because it's such a big role into getting the job. So the first opportunity, education. Like we said, probably not a large opportunity for entry-level positions. It's really just going to be used to get your foot in the door. University pedigree can play a role. We talked about that. And then the other thing, GPA is the most common point of educational differentiation. And I understand as you grow older in your college career, there's not much opportunity to change your GPA. Either way. When you're a junior level, you might be able to bring it up by some awesome grades here toward the end of your junior and senior years, but it's not going to jump as much as it would if you were a freshman or a sophomore. So what can you do on your resume, for example? Yeah, you could do that, absolutely. There's another common thing that you can do, and I did this when I was in school. So I was studying mechanical engineering, and I did pretty well in it as far as core classes go, core engineering classes. When I went to put together my resume, I saw that my core GPA was higher than my overall GPA. I didn't do well in classes like poetry, literature, sociology. I just didn't care, and that was my fault. But what I did is I put my core GPA on my resume. It was higher. I didn't want those well-rounded classes to bring me down. And that's something you could do, especially if it goes the other way. A lot of people don't do well in their core classes, or as well as they do in those well-meaning, socially well-rounded classes. So you can use your overall GPA to almost inflate what you're doing. As long as you call it out on your resume as core and overall GPA, I don't see a problem with it. It's the interviewer's job to ask that. That's his fault if he doesn't. All right, so the next thing, experience. Obviously, internships is the gold standard. They're out there, paid or unpaid, and then ideally in a relevant field, of course. Other jobs. This could be you worked at a movie theater or a golf course or anything like that. You can put that on your resume. Just don't focus on what you did there. Focus on the skills that you acquired, right? We don't want to say that we drove golf carts around all day long. We want to say something pertinent to the job or the experience that we're trying to get. Craft that into a well-written statement and put it on your resume as experience. It's something you can do. And then finally, don't be discouraged by the phrase required experience on these entry-level job postings. Don't let it stop you from applying. Hiring manager will decide if you have enough experience or if that was just a ridiculous requirement. How are you supposed to get an entry-level job if you require 6 years of experience? I have no idea. We have to be better at that as hiring managers. So some opportunities for experience. The first one is club and organization events. On-campus clubs is a really good one. A lot of you are members already. The one thing we want you to look at here is make sure you're investing your time in clubs that you want to be a part of, and you're not just collecting all of this group of clubs so you can put it on your resume. Participate in their events. Join the leadership team. That way you can put it on your resume. The other really good one is professional societies. Engineering, have Engineers Without Borders, Project Management Institute. What are some of the business ones? SAM, of course. What are some of the other professional societies? Anyone? Yes, of course. So a lot of these organizations, these professional societies, have monthly meetings that you can attend at a discounted rate. Get a student membership and go. At least go check it out. Even a bonus would be to do some of their events, participate in some of their events, volunteer. You can use that as experience. Community outreach, this is kind of an interesting one. Volunteer at your church. Maybe you're an accounting major and you need some experience. So go up to the treasurer of the church maybe and ask them if you can be assistant treasurer. Really. I mean, there may not be such thing as an assistant treasurer, but if you ask, maybe there is. It's something you can do. Other community outreach, Habitat for Humanity, etc. Groups like that. Volunteer, participate, use that experience as something you can put on your resume. And then the other one here, the last one, life experiences and special projects. I have a friend that was real big into 3D printing. He's a mechanical engineer, wanted to gain some experience that he can put on his resume since he didn't really have any. He bought a 3D printer kit and built it himself. He blogged about it every day. He just created a blog and just wrote down what he did. And he put that on his LinkedIn resume, or his LinkedIn profile, I should say. That was great. Employers will look at that. If they're really serious about you and they want to see who you are, they're going to look at things like that. Other experiences, if you went on a mission trip to an underserved region of the world, do that. Blog about that. Create a research paper of the skills you learn. Put that on your resume. I think these next 2 slides might be the most important of the day. I'll give you a second to read this. So how huge is this? 85% of the job success comes from having well-developed soft skills and people skills. 15% of the job success comes from technical skills and knowledge, the hard skills that you learn. That's the last 4 years of your life. It's 4 years of all of our lives that we spent that only matters for 15%, potentially. We really need to be focusing on developing these areas. I'm not saying your degree is worthless. Please don't take it that way, but it's a really startling statistic. As one example, does anyone hate talking on the telephone? Yeah? Why? Awkward silence, yeah? You feel that you can write it better? You can write an email better? You can write a text message better? I really think that's a product of how we grew up. We grew up in this technology age where we had text messaging and emails and we didn't have to talk to each other. I hate talking on the phone. I hate it. I hate it. That's just one thing. That's one of the soft skills that we don't have that we really need to work on. So how do you improve those? And this is really important. The first thing you could do is use a tool called the 360-degree feedback survey. I listed a website here you could check out. I'm pretty sure it's all free, and that's represented by the graphic at the right. Basically, this survey is sent out to a select group of people who work around you, managers, peers, and subordinates, and it solicits anonymous feedback from them. That anonymous feedback is put into a report that you get to see. It's all anonymous, of course, and it gives you a game plan for what you need to improve. It tells you what your strengths are. It tells you what you need to focus on, and it creates a roadmap for how you need to get there. This is a tool that's being used corporately, probably over the last 10 years especially, more so in the latter 5. Other things you could do, self-assessments, variety of tools online, surveys, personality tests, things like that. I know it sounds corny, but these are things we really need to understand. Goal setting. Set goals for yourself. I hate talking on the phone. I set a goal for myself to call people maybe once or twice a week to start out. I'm going to call them and have a conversation with them, whether I want to or not, especially like with customer service groups. I call Best Buy a lot and just complain. But it's things that help you improve. These are things that we need to do. Find plans for ourselves to improve and hold yourself accountable for them. Learn from others. Quick Google search will yield some pretty decent YouTube videos on self-improvement and things like that. You can pretty much learn anything on YouTube, so don't discredit what's there. And then practice. Practice in a group or practice alone. It doesn't really matter. We just need to find ways to get better. If we don't do this, and I'm serious about this, now first let me ask you, has anyone gone to a professional job interview yet? Yeah? Was it for an internship or a position? Internships? Did they test you? Like for personality tests and knowledge tests? Behavioral questions? Did you do it online or did they just ask them to you? Anyone else? We're seeing a shift. A lot of companies are doing this now. Some even before the interview process. If they like your resume, you might get an email that says, we would like you to complete this personality test, this knowledge test. And some of them are like a 3-hour test. So you'll sit there online, you'll take this test, and results are sent to your employer or your prospective employer. And it tells them exactly what your strengths and weaknesses are. They're terribly accurate. They're wonderful. You might not get a call. You might have the best resume in the world, and if you suck at that test, they're not going to call you. Or they'll call you to see if it was a fluke. It's huge. Employers are going to know your strengths and weaknesses before you do, unless you do some of these tools. A lot of the companies that I've encountered won't even hire you. They'll be prohibited from hiring you if you have these weaknesses. Have an awesome interview, awesome resume, say all the right things, They don't care. Test says different. The next opportunity. And this one is a bit corny, but it's true. Passion. Passion's important because it does fuel confidence, creates excitement in your group, and it's contagious. People want to be around people who are passionate about what they're doing. When you talk about passionate people at work, they're people that want to be there, people that want to innovate, people that want to do new things. More importantly, people that want to be there for a long time. Why is that important? Anyone want to guess at what the cost of bringing a new employee is on? At the cost of bringing on a new employee is? Is that the better sentence structure? No guess? It's 1.5 to 3.0 times the annual salary to bring on a new employee. In terms of training, benefits, taxes, and all that other nonsense. Training, that's a lot. That's why people are looking to make the best choice. They're using these new tools, this new technology, to hedge their bets. They don't want to invest all this money if you're going to leave 6 months later or be the wrong fit. It's just not something they want to do. So we're to the last section here, selling your brand. So the first thing, obviously, is the job interview. How do you get a job interview? Well, you have to have a good resume and a cover letter. I know I downplayed the importance of a resume as it relates to getting a job offer, but to getting an interview, that's the most important part. You need to dedicate the time and effort and maybe even some money to making it the best it can be. Now, last week I searched Groupon resume services and I found that snip on the left. There's companies out there that you can pay to interview you and produce a resume that is well written, that's something you could be proud of. If you're not comfortable doing it, or if you don't want to go over to the Career Services Center and have them help you with it, it's an option for you. You said it's the most important factor in getting an interview. From there, it's up to you. You have to sell yourself. So how do we find the jobs? And this is something I never used in school. I never used the Career Center. RMU has a Career Center here. I haven't been there personally because I was employed when I was here, but the real good statistic here is 60% of all of the entry-level positions are filled through on-campus events. Where are those on-campus events coordinated from? Career Center. I think you guys should probably consider spending some time there if you're not already. Other places, traditional job posting sites like Monster, Indeed, Career Builder. Social media is a good one, LinkedIn. There's a ton of postings on there every day. Facebook's starting to get some, but I don't trust Facebook for things like that. Friends and family, your network. We talked about the cost of bringing a new employee on. Hiring managers find it easier to hire people that they know because it's a lesser risk, right? It's no longer this great big unknown. It's somewhat of unknown. At least somebody knows this person and knows who they are and knows what kind of work ethic they have, perhaps. And then luck really does happen. Got to be in the right place at the right time. That's happened to me quite a bit, admittedly, and it's been good. Networking is probably one of the more important things you can do to get a job. You should exploit every opportunity you get. You get opportunities every day on campus. People sitting in this room might be your manager someday. They might be your coworkers. They might be somebody that can get you an in at a company that you want to work at. Be real nice to call on them. In your community, it's another opportunity. Professional events is probably the biggest opportunity for this. Go to the society meetings and meet people, meet the professionals in the community. Maybe you can call on them at some time. Use them as a reference for a company you're trying to get a job at. And don't underestimate the importance and impact of this. We mentioned LinkedIn's a good tool for this. That's all LinkedIn is. It's networking, right? One of the best networking examples that I ever heard of happened to one of my friends who I grew up with. He owns his own energy efficiency company that does LED lighting. And he's owned it since he graduated college, but I see him on Facebook posting these pictures of Trump National Golf Course, probably every Monday, every Tuesday. And I finally asked him why he's posting these. I know he's not a member. He told me he's caddying there. Why would somebody with a business want to caddy at one of these prestigious resorts? When he told me, I couldn't believe it. He's caddying for some of the biggest players in the business world. Fortune 500 CEOs, hiring managers, just the top people. And it blew my mind. He'll hang out with them for 5 hours and carry their bag around, but 2 weeks later he'll call on them and try to sell them his stuff. It was amazing. Blew my mind. Two other things here. Other possibilities. Recruiter and a staffing agency. I've used these a couple times in my career, and they're really good at finding jobs for you. They do a lot of the legwork, setting up the interviews, and they'll help you avoid uncomfortable situations, salary negotiations, benefit negotiations. It's really good if you can find a good, reputable recruiter. Just be aware of some of the recruiters that are opportunistic. They'll be looking out for their best interests and trying to get more money for themselves. I had a recruiter once place me at a job, only to call me 6 weeks later to try to place me in another job. They get commissions on each time they place somebody. So it's really interesting. You got to find a good one. And then the last thing, just from sheer ambition, cold calling people. Maybe your dream's been to work at Bayer or Mylan or GE. Find out who the HR people there are. Find out who the HR people are. Call them, send them an email, ask them if you can come shake their hand, drop off a resume, create an application. People like ambitious people. People that want to be there, remember. So finally, to the conclusion, these are the key takeaways as I see it. Manage your personal brand the same way you would a product that you love. You need to understand your strengths and weaknesses, play to the strengths, improve your weaknesses. Continually work on improving your soft skills. We talked about some of the self-improvement opportunities that you have, the tools that are available. Really need to focus on those because employers are really getting wiser as it pertains to that. Acquire more experience in quotes that can be used to bolster your resume, your skill set. This is volunteering at your church, going to these professional society meetings, joining more clubs on campus, participating in their events. And then the last thing, probably one of the more important things, don't give employers a reason not to hire you. The biggest thing there is social media blunders. You should probably check your Facebook privacy settings. Change your name on Facebook. Seriously, do things like that because people are going to look. I try to Google the employees that I hire. Try to find out who they are. I want to make sure they're going to represent our organization in the proper way. It's important. You don't want them to find pictures of you on spring break that might not be very flattering, for example. So keep that in mind. So that's the last thing I had. Did anyone have any questions? Yes, sir. Oh.
Hello. Okay.
Good day.
I realized that you worked at your entry level job for 1 year, and then you moved on to manager.
That's correct.
What did you do to stand out?
All right, so the name is deceiving a little bit. I started as a project engineer for the first year I was out of school, and I moved into a project manager position, which didn't have any direct reports, but I had indirect reports. And that was one of the things that was a right place, right time kind of thing. I wanted to grow my career into the project manager position from a project engineer, which would have been a step up, and it was truly right place, right time. When I did acquire managerial experience, sorry. Probably should have just exited out. And yeah, there we go. I didn't acquire managerial experience till right here. Faced a similar, I thought it was a similar challenge as I did at the entry-level job. How do you get experience without having experience? Same thing there. How do you get management experience without managing someone? I wish I could tell you that I did something crazy, but all I did was I expressed my interest at my annual performance reviews. I said I want to grow my career here. This is a place that I want to be. I want to be a manager here. That's the next challenge I want to tackle, and I was given that opportunity in 2012. I don't have a better answer. I'm sorry. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Up front here. Sorry to make you run around.
When it comes to putting your experiences in your resume, how do you differentiate yourself in a positive way versus, say, several experiences but master of none, or different crafts?
Well, I think it comes down to a couple things. What do you want? What do you want your resume to say about the skills that you acquired? I see what you're saying is, what if I have 5 of these experiences? Do I just list them all and list the same skills every time? I don't think you have to. I think you want to list maybe the most recent ones that you had, or the most impactful one that you had, the most important one perhaps, and explain that on the resume. Then you can go into the interview and explain, no, I have all of these as well. It's something you can do.
How important is a cover letter for a beginning job, an entry-level job?
I think it's very important. I've hired one entry-level person in my life, and he sent a cover letter. The cover letter was really good. It said everything that the resume couldn't. It's things that you want to advance to your employer, that it's not something you can put on your resume. That's where your soft skills come in. Your writing ability even. Can you compose a sentence or a paragraph? There's a lot of people that can't. I don't know that I'd do it for every job if you don't have time, but important jobs you should write a cover letter. I value them. I know a lot of my colleagues do as well. It shows, if anything, it shows somebody took the time to write this. They're serious about the job enough rather than to just upload a resume and send it.
Okay, everyone, thank you very much for attending. Thank you very much, Vinny.
Thanks for
Appreciate
having me.
it.
I appreciate it.
If you would do us one more, please. I need 2.
No, I got you.
Okay. First one will get a t-shirt.